Hello, high tier players. This episode of Advice for All Ranks is all about the Brawlers. Originally, I wasn't even going to do a video on this category because until the 1.5 season changes to Iron Fist, Wolverine was the only member of this category in the game. But since Season 2 notes have come out, I figured it's best to make this video now so the information gets out there to the people considering how to play in the new season. I also understand the irony of more rank-up content after I made the video exposing the AI matchmaker's inner workings. Link in the pinned comment below. But I want to make it clear that although the AI matchmaker does send you on streaks sometimes, a large percentage of games are also in a gray middle area that you can still take a decent enough advantage of if you make the right decisions and have a mechanical skill to pull off what is necessary when it's needed. This entire Advice for Every Rank series is geared towards maximizing the win percentage within that gray middle area. We all know the game can sometimes just make us lose. There's nothing we can do about that. But in any of the gray area games, we need to be dominating and winning as many of those as possible to offset when it inevitably does give you NPC teams. Brawlers are an often misunderstood category that aren't played like dive melee, such as Black Panther, Spider-Man, or occasionally Magic, despite being categorized as melee duelists. Brawlers mainly focus on the frontliners, the Vanguards, Mr. Fantastics, other Brawlers, etc., but also rotate occasionally into the backline if they see an easy pick. Their positioning is basically the inverse of shield Vanguards, in that instead of moving between your own frontline and backline, you'll be rotating between 70% focusing enemy frontline and about 30% opportunity seizing in backline. With the Season 2 notes out, we now know that they want Iron Fist to fulfill more of a tank shredder role, similar to Wolverine, as many of us had already theorized in 1.5. I have already seen very mixed reactions to their changes, so to help us understand in detail, I'll supply some math. For these, we will use a 600 hit point Vanguard as the example, because it's going to be the lowest number in the Vanguard health range, and any higher health Vanguards will be even better targets for us. So the math breakdown of Wolverine versus this target is approximately 61 damage per second with normal attacks as it is right now. This is then enhanced to approximately 264 damage per second with enhanced slashes after you land a successful charge with the damage from the ability. This is further enhanced to approximately 420 damage in a 1 second burst when you're using your ultimate and successful melee combo follow-up, while all the targets are stunned. Meanwhile, the math breakdown of Iron Fist versus a 600 hit point Vanguard is about 60 damage per second with normal attacks as they are right now. Currently, a full flurry of enhanced punches after using your block does about 141.4 damage per second. After the Season 2 update, it will be about 151.2 damage per second. So about a 6.5% increase in this scenario. Of course, that will be slightly higher versus higher health Vanguards. Flurry in ult does about 183.8 damage per second right now, and after the Season 2 buff, that will be 196.56 damage per second. It seems like they really listened to the Iron Fist players, because although it's a little lacking in many opinions still, it's all steps in the right direction for what he needed, which was lower cooldown on kick and damage buffs to make him more relevant in his new role. It still looks like Wolverine is a clear favorite when it comes to this role. Most are probably going to want to see this gap closed even more. It shouldn't be closed entirely because Iron Fist's block mechanic gives him a lot more survivability and ability to stay in fights longer than Wolverine. There needs to be a trade-off, but it's still giving up too much, probably even after Season 2 buffs. Just my opinion, but I think it should be more like minus 30% from Iron Fist compared to Wolverine's enhanced attack damage in exchange for the current state block mechanic, instead of the minus 42.8% and minus 53.2% if you're comparing ult bursts, that it will be even after the Season 2 buffs. Too often in the discussion of comparing the two, people leave out entirely how Wolverine can stun with his charge and ult and forcibly displace enemies a decent distance, but they'll bring up Iron Fist's block mechanic. Anyways, back to the patch notes. Wolverine's Season 2 changes seem like nerfs to me across the board because the sources for rage are now less on the damage you're doing and more about the damage you're taking, which isn't good. Remember how we said Iron Fist is the one with the staying power because of his block? Well, that means Wolverine comparatively doesn't have the staying power to take the damage for long enough to benefit and do much back before he needs to get out of danger. Wolverine doesn't have much tankiness to him if his shield health passive isn't up, and blows up incredibly fast and easily if you're not good at keeping track of your team's positions. All in all, the changes don't seem like they will affect current playstyles of these heroes at the Eternity and 1 above all level. Iron Fist can be ever so slightly more aggressive than right now, but not really all that much more from what it looks like on paper. It's actually more so the kick cooldown reduction and not the damage buff that allows us to do this because of the increased access to mobility and a finisher for backline opportunities. We still should be focusing mostly frontliners, and even more so after Season 2 patch. Wolverines will have to play ever so slightly more defensively, but we already have to be very careful about timing our charges correctly to land in decent positions. So again, I'm just not anticipating much needed changes from how he's currently played. So how do we dominate the ranked ladder as much as the AI matchmaker will let us? Let's start at the very beginning in Bronze. Bronze is for basics. Here, just learn to use your abilities effectively. For Wolverine, this means landing your charges consistently and making sure to end up in a proper position in the middle of your teammates. For Iron Fist, this means learning when to disengage when there's too much heat coming your way and you need to block and kick out to your team, or when to rotate to the enemy backline because one is low enough and you can combo them down quickly. I also highly recommend using I'm Win's style of tracing up and down on the center line of a target you are attacking. For some reason, this really does help the auto tracking a lot and will make your offensive actions much more effective consistently. Silver and Gold honestly are about the same in terms of what you need to be learning to do. In both leagues, you need to not just land, but optimize these uses of cooldowns and ultimates. For Wolverine, this means not just landing charges, but charging a specific proper target at the right timing so it has a very high chance of securing target kill. This may mean not charging only vanguards, but possibly just anyone close enough to snatch. For Iron Fist, this means proper ult timing so you get maximum value. Unlike Wolverine that has a strong burst, Iron Fist does his damage more consistently over a longer period of time, and thus is more susceptible to having his ult nullified by an enemy healer at some point during its duration, and also being focused down because even with this block mechanic, having tunnel vision trying to finish off every target will just end with you feeding the enemy. Iron Fist must be fluid between offensive and defensive position decisions. Platinum, Diamond, and Grandmaster are all also the same for learning and progressing. You just need more focus and mastery on the following things the higher up in this trio you go. This is where you start to need to implement some higher level tricks and strategies, such as properly timed spawn camping as Iron Fist, or using cooldowns and ultimates to trigger certain enemy ults at bad timings and positions, trying to survive your onslaught. The reason I recommend that this should wait until at least this high up is that if you don't have the basics of your combat down, you have a high chance of executing something mechanically wrong when you go for extreme high risk reward plays like spawn camping. The timings for these strategies are very tight, and it's very easy to turn into an NPC feeder instead of a strategic genius. But we are high tier, right? We don't feed. When doing this, you need to be very good at glancing at the kill feed so you keep track of how many enemies can potentially come out of spawn so you don't go all in versus 2 or more and feed. Keep working on optimizing ult usage. Keep track of enemy strategist ults specifically. Celestial is where we finally start working pretty consistently with the team on all plays, and it's all about working on tightening up coordination of ult combos. Wolverines, there's really not much I noticed that was different from here, including currently in Eternity. Everything needed to be more mechanically consistent and well timed, but nothing truly different needed to be done. Just done better or faster. Iron Fists, this is going to sound silly, but we can finally play the game starting right around here. I sincerely believe that Iron Fist is worse at lower elos because his block's power is so dependent on the enemy being able to actually hit him. At lower elo, you can use block at the right timing, stand perfectly still, and watch 2 or even 3 enemies miss 15 or more shots in a row, and now you gotta kick out or you're dead. At higher elo, healers are paying attention to you a lot more consistently, which allows you to have some pretty ridiculous fight uptime, even alongside your frontliners. Frontliners are also just plain better at creating a strong presence higher up, so it's a lot harder for enemies to be able to focus all on you, and thus forcing you into defensive mode. Despite the higher skill of everyone overall, I consistently found, and so do many other Eternity 1 above alls, Iron Fist is much easier to play at higher elo, starting around Celestial 2 or 1, just because everybody else is more consistently doing their jobs. So, I hope this was helpful and allows you to win as many of those gray area games as possible. I know the AI matchmaker can be a real downer giving losers queue, but it also generally rewards just plain old playing for long enough, at least up until Celestial 3. This means anyone who wants to climb at minimum to Celestial should be able to if they just play long enough executing the strategies mentioned in this video despite the matchmaker. I will be back next time with another guide. The next one probably being Vanguards, since Season 2 brings Emma Frost. So until then, stay on that high tier, players. The view from up here is always worth it.